As we continue to look at the various strategies and tactics of the interest groups, remember that the strategies are initiating action, blocking action, or influencing appointments. So the tactics are how the various interest groups are going to achieve these three strategies. Again, making sure that you understand and keep in mind that the ultimate goal of the interest groups is to have influence over the process. We look at direct lobbying and indirect lobbying. Direct lobbying is really about gaining access. As I mentioned before, interest groups want to make sure that they have their voices heard. They can do this in a couple of different ways. One, they can employ in-house lobbyists, people that actually go out to Capitol Hill, meet with staff members of the various members of Congress, maybe meet with the members themselves, have access to members of the bureaucracy, staff members of the various committees, maybe people working in the White House office or the executive office of the president. But these are people who have access. How do they get access? They may have worked for the president. They may have worked for members of Congress. They may have worked for the bureaucracy at some point. This is the revolving door. They also just might be lawyers or people who are good with people and can talk with people well. Okay? They may hire lobbying firms, or they may have in-house lobbyists, people that work for them. For example, Walmart may be part of a retail federation or retail group, but they also may have people working at their corporate office. Another thing that's a little bit different is they can provide the expertise that members of Congress don't have. Remember that we talked about hearings, when we talked about various things that were going on with Congress, that members of Congress are not experts in everything. They have staff members that will help them. They have the Government Accountability Office that will provide information for them. They have the Congressional Research Service that will research things for them. But they can also rely on interest groups. The liberal members of Congress may very well invite Sierra Club people, experts, to come in to talk about the environment if they are part of the environmental subcommittee on something. These people are providing the expertise, and they will act as sources of information for people that are making the policy decisions. The bureaucracy is probably a little bit less likely to rely on these folks to do this type of thing because they are experts. But again, some of these interest groups have very specific detail expertise that can be relied on by anybody in government. Okay. This expertise is also really important when drafting legislation, not just in the committee hearings. Another way to directly lobby is to make campaign contributions. This doesn't only happen during the election season. Remember that members of Congress have to raise approximately $10,000 a week. Members of the Senate have to raise approximately $20,000 a week. And who do they get it from? They get it from the political action committees, which are often part of the interest groups. The Sierra Club has its own PAC. The American Petroleum Institute has its own PAC, and they are giving money to members of Congress. They are giving money to the president. During the election season, they are also giving money to challengers. Trump's not really getting money, but Rubio is getting money, Christie is getting money, Bush is getting money, Clinton's getting money. They're all getting money from these interest groups because ultimately this will hopefully give them access. Okay, that when they contact the officials, again, they will at least get a hearing. The more cynical you are, the more you'll think that the money buys access and buys influence, thus making policy. But when you really start to think about it, they are more likely to get heard than somebody who is not contributing. And then finally, this last piece of direct lobbying is litigation. This is just using the courts to have influence. If the EPA passes a policy that you disagree with, maybe you'll be charged with it through a fine or something like that. You may bring this to court, and you will have the courts determine whether or not the EPA has the constitutional authority or the legislative authority to issue that regulation. This recently happened, and it's ongoing actually, with regards to the Clean Air Act and the particulate emissions from coal-fired power plants. So those are some of the direct lobbying tactics. The indirect lobbying techniques are indirect in the sense that the interest groups do not contact the policymakers directly. The interest groups rally third parties who then will bring pressure to bear on the people making the decisions, whether it's the president, whether it's members of Congress, or even the bureaucracy. Remember, in the bureaucracy, they have the APA requires proposed rules to be published, and there is a 30-day period where the public can offer commentary. What better way to go indirect than indirectly lobby members of government than to get the public aware of an issue? Much of the public doesn't get news, doesn't follow the news very closely. So if the Sierra Club all of a sudden starts talking about the clear cutting of national forests or the redwoods being threatened by lumber companies, the public could get outraged. The media might take this up. And so here's an example of the media working together with the lobbyists, reporting on the stories that might be important. It's going to mobilize the supporters. Not only are they going to raise the general awareness of the public, but they are going to mobilize their specific supporters. This is why the AARP, with its 30 or 40 million members, has a tremendous amount of clout. They can bring a tremendous amount of pressure to bear when needed. If a member of Congress is threatening Social Security, then AARP could raise this issue to its members through an email, and then its membership could then become active and contact their members of Congress or whatnot. Okay, this is again grassroots lobbying. This is the constituents contacting the members of Congress directly, not the interest group contacting the members of Congress. MoveOn.org, an example of netroots, where people are using the internet to create this grassroots mobilization. They mold public opinion, okay, by going public. They provide the information that is reported by the media. Okay, there are lots of connections between the public opinion stuff that we studied, the media stuff that we studied, and interest groups. Again, these are all links between people and the government. Interest groups are an immediate link because I can be part of an interest group that is trying to influence public policy. We can even do protests. We can do civil disobedience. Occupy Wall Street was a good example of that. And so when we think of the indirect lobbying techniques, we have to think about the interest groups getting others to push that interest group's agenda.